Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Welcome to Brilliance Business TV, conversations with leading experts in business. I am your host, Mark Stephen Pooler. We have another wonderful guest today, Desiree Anderson. Self-sabotage can really affect our businesses. Also, burnout is so common in business and in the entrepreneurship world. And leadership skills, sometimes leadership skills are also lacking in business. So you will really enjoy our conversation today. I would just like to make an official shout out to our show sponsors, Craig Shelley, Beverly Hills Luxury Watches and Fine Jewelry at craigshelley.com. We are streaming live on mspnewsglobal.com. We're also on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, and we're also streaming through the E360 TV network under Fresh Takes. So check us out on Apple TV, Fire TV, Android TV, Roku, and many more. Let's bring in our incredible guest, Desiree Anderson. Desiree, welcome to Brilliance Business TV.
Thank you, Mark. It's great to be here. I was sort of having a bit of a jive as I was hearing the music.
You're not the first to have a jive to my theme tune, Desiree. So, Desiree, like I mentioned, burnout is a real challenge for some people in business and entrepreneurship. Also, self-sabotage is really common in the business world. And like I mentioned, sometimes leadership skills are lacking a little bit in the business world as well. So we will discuss all of those topics. Can you just take us back a bit about your background and your past that has led you to do what you do today?
Yes, sure. So I was born in Cape Town, South Africa, and spent a lot of my first few years of my working life in South Africa after qualifying at the University of Cape Town in HR. So I worked for leading companies there, including investment banking, before moving over here. So I experienced a lot of cultural transformation, as you can imagine. Transformation and diversity is part of my DNA, especially post-Mandela. So I was in the working world at that time. So it was an amazing experience. Then I moved over to the UK and worked for an American company, actually, and then a European company, and then consequently for some leading companies in the UK, ranging right through from retail through to technology in HR as a consultant. And what has led me to Crest Coaching in HR is that I saw a lot of toxic cultures in the companies that I worked for. And a lot of the leaders were really suffering and didn't have anybody to talk to. And so I formed Crest Coaching in HR in 2020 to really help those leaders with a combination of coaching, which helps with self-awareness, and then the procedures should they require help specifically with their teams and themselves from an HR perspective.
We have something in common. I'm very big on diversity. I think it's so important in today's modern world. I love what you're about, Desiree, and you have a great background and you've created your own business, Crest Coaching and HR. So tell us a little bit about your business now and how you support your clients.
Yes, well, I named it Crest because I wanted to support anybody from any walk of life to ride the crest of their own wave. And so I help entrepreneurs, people in career transition. That's very important to me, to help those people to find a job. And also people that are in corporate, international corporates at the moment. I have a number of clients. And I like that variety because ultimately all those sections of people feed into our economy, and the better I can make them and help them be from a self-awareness perspective, giving them those tools, the better I believe they'll succeed within their own lives. And so that's what I do within Crest at the moment. And we do one-to-one coaching, workshops, and I have a number of booklets as well that I help out. And then I do consulting as well in HR for some of the companies too.
Tell us a little bit about your HR, what you do there as well.
Yes, so just to give you an example, for instance, I just recently helped somebody put together some policies on human trafficking, which is such a huge issue across the world and in the UK. We'd never think so, but there are just thousands of people that are subject to human trafficking. So putting together their business principles as well, so that they can show the world what they stand for as an individual. So working with that business leader to really bring that out. And then he's now publicized that. And then also, as I said, putting together the policies. So with HR, I also help out with if there's any problems with particular staff members, helping to decide how we communicate with those people. And then in teams, how do we bring those teams together and help them feel more of a sense of belonging, especially in this day and age, Mark, of people feeling so disparate from their organizations and in their lives in particular.
So they're really interesting topics that you're working on. That must feel really rewarding that you're working on such great things and really giving value to help people to move forwards as well, Desiree. Teams, it's quite shocking, really, isn't it? That's in so many workplaces, they struggle with teams working together, Desiree.
They so do, Mark. And I think we've all been in teams and seen how challenging it can be. And I think with the different format of teams now, we have hybrid working, don't we? With some people remote, and they could be across the world. And then we've got people working in the office. So how do you get those two sections of the teams to feel as if they're both contributing and they're both seen and visible and valued? And then also, how do you help people feel productive in this day and age and really make a massive difference to their organizations? Because let's face it, organizations need to be very competitive out there and stand out above the competition, not just in terms of profits and productivity, but actually in terms of their social conscience.
I do think we have come a long way with the workplaces and teams working together, but I think there's still a lot of work to be done there. Have you noticed a big difference since we went through the pandemic? Because obviously, like you mentioned, it's completely changed the workplace with teams remote, virtual, etc., etc.
Yes, I would say, Mark, that I have noticed with my clients that leaders are less confident at the moment because of all the changes that they've had to face. And I think because staff members know now that they can perhaps work from home and they've allowed all those competing priorities into their lives, work has become not just a place now, it's a mindset. So it's actually to get that mindset right, and all the mental health issues that have come with the pandemic is much more of a challenge for leaders and their teams right now.
I'm very big advocate for mental health. I also speak a lot about mental health. It's really, really important, and anything we can do to improve that, especially in the workplace. I also speak a lot about bullying, Desiree, and that can really affect your mental health when maybe you've got a boss who is on a power trip, or there's team members that are talking behind each other's backs. That can become a problem as well in the workplace with mental health, can't it?
Absolutely. And it's so destructive for the individual that's being bullied, especially if you feel you can't speak out to anybody. And what I would say is, no job is ever that important for somebody to bully you. Try and see who you can speak to, even if it's somebody outside the organization, and get your strategy in place, because you should be able to speak out, and you should be able to, even if it means whistleblowing on a particular situation. But nobody should tolerate that.
Yes, never be afraid to speak up, and you should never suffer alone. What are some of the challenges that are being shown in leadership? So some of the leadership challenges.
Yes, so leadership is being challenged from a number of perspectives, as we've said. Firstly, the whole way that people are working has changed. So people are more flexible in their shifts, and leaders are going to have to, and are already having to, match what they need to get out in terms of KPIs and productivity with people's needs at home. But not only that, we need STEM skills, so scientific and engineering and those sort of skills for the future. And we'll have a lot more people working contractually, sometimes just for a short period of time. And so we need to get them embedded in the team quickly, get them to understand what the processes are. So leaders need to really get their processes right. But not only that, their method of how they communicate with people, both informally and formally. They really need to get to know their people very quickly so that they can have the maximum impact on the organization.
So to me, it seems there's lots of changes and shifts, and the pandemic has obviously changed things for the future as well, Desiree, hasn't it?
Definitely. I think the pandemic has changed the face of business and the face of work forever. A leader is now required to be so much more than somebody who just tells people what to do. It's actually that you really need to be top of your game, but you need to understand yourself first. And that's where the coaching comes in, the self-acceptance and the self-knowledge, so that you can move yourself forward and be happy in your own job as a leader.
And another word that you mentioned there, which I think is really important, communication. It shocks me sometimes, Desiree, that even quite experienced entrepreneurs, they lack some communication skills. It's such an important skill to have. I did a post the other day about being silent and listening and pausing before you speak, because I get on sales calls or business calls, and I just find some people just like to talk and talk and talk, but they don't have communication skills, especially when it comes to listening. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's something we all are on a journey about. I remember when I first did my coaching degree, I'd been in HR for years. And because I'd had to tell people what to do, I had to really work on my listening when I became more self-aware of that. It is tough, especially with the pace of business at the moment, but so rewarding if you help somebody else feel valued and heard. And it's amazing what you can find out if you just are silent or use the appropriate open questions.
I agree totally. Desiree, I've really enjoyed part one of having a conversation with you. Stay where you are. We're just going to a commercial break. Thank you everyone for watching part one of Brilliance Business TV. We're having a conversation with Desiree Anderson. We have been talking about leadership, self-sabotage, burnout, all things that if we can overcome it, improve, it will drastically change the way we do business. Stay tuned for part two. welcome back to Brilliance Business TV. Our conversation today is with Desiree Anderson. We have discussed self-sabotage, burnout, leadership. Welcome back, Desiree.
Thank you, Mark.
My next question, I would like to talk a little bit about self-sabotage. It's so easy for us to have negative belief systems, negative self-talk, and really have self-sabotage that can really slow us down in our progressions, in our business, our personal lives. Why is it so important for us to be able to overcome self-sabotage?
Well, self-sabotage is all about us consciously or unconsciously blocking ourselves from our dreams and aspirations.
Yes.
And so the first thing is that it would make us feel very low about ourselves and affect our self-esteem if we constantly self-sabotaging, because it's just a negative cycle that we get ourselves into. That can then lead to mental health issues, stress, burnout, and even more serious aspects, which I've had experience in people doing, and that's not easy. And then the third aspect is what we spoke about before the break, Mark, which is that businesses need to be on top of their game, leaders need to be on top of their game and really find their unique selling point. And so self-sabotage isn't helping the situation and could cause even further worry to the leader because they're not achieving what they want to achieve from a legacy perspective as well in their business.
So could you just share a few tips, because there may be people out there watching that are struggling with self-sabotage, just a few tips for us to overcome self-sabotage?
Of course. So when we think of self-sabotage, so think procrastination, think telling yourself unhelpful stories, imposter syndrome, resentment, perfectionism, that sort of thing. So what I would suggest you do is try and identify honestly what is holding you back in your life. It may take you a few days and a few hours of journaling, but really dig deep and be honest with yourself. And then think about why that's holding you back. It could stem right from childhood, and you could have picked up a lot of expectations from your parents. Remember, you are not other people's expectations, their dreams. You're your own person, and so you deserve to walk along your own path. Then the second thing I would say is surround yourself with people who aren't perfect. None of us are perfect. We know that. But actually, when you've got friends and business colleagues who are happy to admit where they've struggled or where they're having a bad day, it really helps, doesn't it, Mark? So surround yourself with that. Personally, Michelle Obama is my personal role model because she's overcome imposter syndrome. So I really have a look at that. So I would say role models in your personal life, but also people that you can look up to. And then thirdly, when you do have a self-sabotaging thought, just remember that those thoughts are here to protect you. They're coming from the part of your brain that are part of your survival. Accept those thoughts with self-compassion, but they're not who you are. That imposter may even be an image of somebody. In my situation, it was like my old gym teacher who told me that I wasn't good at sport at school, and I'd see this image of this person. I could even hear her voice. So really dig deep and think about who your imposter is, who your saboteur is, and then just let it go. And when it comes back, just again, accept and let it go, because thoughts are just things. They, again, don't define who you are. So those are my 3 top tips.
I love them. And like you mentioned, thoughts as well, they're not who we are. And as well, they do pass as well. So sometimes we can have these negative thoughts. And if you spend too much time worrying on them, it can make them last longer than they need to last. Thoughts do pass. That's good and bad thoughts. But I think another key thing you mentioned there, Desiree, was digging deep as well. It does take a certain level of self-improvement, personal development, to spend that little time going inwards to find the root of those triggers. Do you agree with me there? there?
I do. And I think most leaders are on this treadmill, really, where we think we have to be perfect. We see so much in social media, and we know that it's not always true, that people don't have perfect lives, but it's actually really digging deep, taking that time, and get a coach if you need one. Get somebody to speak to about really finding out what is holding you back in your life. Because if you admit to yourself in your quiet moments, you do want to succeed and you do want to make the best of your life.
I agree totally. Now, we have touched a little bit, Desiree, on the importance of teams and them working together in harmony. So my next question, how do we get more commitment from teams as a leader, whether we're in entrepreneurship or in business? I think this is a really important question to dig deeper with.
Yes, so with your teams, you need to make sure from the start that people understand what their role is in relation to the overall business proposition. So what is the mission of the business? What are the values of the business? Incorporate other people's values. So as people join the business, make sure we change our values. We incorporate new people's values and diversity in that from the start, so that people have a sense of reflection, a sense of having feedback, but also a sense of belonging. It's not a static thing. And then in terms of teams, your day-to-day communication with those team members are so important, and with each other. So make sure that you have many, many different ways of interacting. Remember, people learn in 3 different ways: your visual, your kinesthetic, all those different ways that people learn, the auditory, like we're doing now. So make sure that you've got different processes to appeal to those different team members. Also, people like Belbin and different research that you can do will show that when you have a team that is more diverse, and you've got your leader, your creative person, your person that helps everybody feel nurtured, this is so much better for productivity. So try and mix up, especially when you've got projects in your teams. Try and mix different people together. And then finally, I would just say, from a leadership perspective, remember that your team is evolving and that you will have these very temporary people, gig workers, coming into your teams. So think about how you can make people feel valued by getting to know them as quickly as possible.
What I like what you mentioned there, Desiree, was values. I talk about values a lot myself as well. Firstly, knowing your own values, whether it's your personal values or your business values. It's really important that you spend time to know your own personal and business values.
So true.
And I always say, if you're going into business with someone, collaborating with someone, doing a joint venture with someone, be sure that your values resonate with each other. And that's a recipe for success, because the worst thing you can do is go into business, collaborate, joint venture with someone who hasn't got the same values or values that are aligned. Do you agree with that?
I totally agree. And I think that can be discussed at the interview, and that needs to be carried right through the organization or your company in everything you do, whether it's customers, stakeholders, suppliers. It should be consistent.
Now, I know, Desiree, you're working on a workshop, which I know you're super excited about, and it's in pilot stage. Tell us all about this workshop that you're working on.
Yes, well, it's called Relationships at Work, because if you think about it, we've had so many different leadership theories and styles through the years across all the countries in the world, but we've never really got it right. And at the core is relationships with ourselves and relationships with others. And so I've put together this workshop, which we'll talk about in a minute in terms of the call to action. But what it involves knowing how to give feedback, looking at differing personalities, dealing with conflict, dealing with people in remote working situations, how to have more visibility at work, and how to communicate what you do and your talents up the ladder so that you get promotions if that's what you would like, and then how to work better in teams. So I'm very excited about it. It's very fresh material, which also incorporates mental health and well-being.
And when do you look at launching the workshop, Desiree?
I will be launching that in December and January. So there's a number of modules that will run throughout those months at flexible times.
I know as well you have an ebook, Burnout to Brilliance. Tell us a little bit about this, Desiree.
Yes, so I wrote this ebook for leaders and entrepreneurs to help with self-coaching exercises. So some of the tips that I've given here today are in my ebook, and it will help you just work through that first bit, that analytical part of what is holding you back, and then identify some behaviors that you can use to overcome burnout and self-sabotage. So hence Burnout to Brilliance. And that was a complete coincidence, Mark, because of your Brilliance TV. So it matches very well with me being here today.
That's a sign that our values are resonating, Desiree. And you have been really generous offering our viewers a free copy of your ebook, Burnout to Brilliance. Leadership skills are so important, as we have discussed. Burnout is a big problem in the entrepreneurship world and the business world, and self-sabotage is really, really a hard thing to get through if you don't have the right tools. So I would recommend everyone to contact Desiree at info@Crest Coaching and HR.com. That's info@Crest Coaching and HR.com. Once more, that's info@Crest Coaching and HR.com, and you will be able to get a free copy of Desiree's ebook, Burnout to Brilliance. Desiree, I have really enjoyed having a conversation with you today. Thank you so much for coming on to the Brilliance Business Show.
Thanks so much, Mark. And thanks to everybody that's listened to us and will listen to us. I really hope it helps a lot of people.
I would like to let you close the show, Desiree, with a final word of wisdom for anyone out there struggling with self-sabotage and burnout. Give them a word of wisdom to close the show with.
You are perfect just the way you are. So think about what you want to do in your life and go for it, because none of us are perfect. And you will do it with the right self-reflection and tools and help from others. Reach out if you need to.
You are perfect just the way you are. Thank you, everyone, for watching Brilliance Business TV. Until next time, bye for now.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.